Changes in your projects. And as we all know, no matter how well you plan, sometimes things happen that you did not plan. And when a German says that, you can say, well, probably it's going to happen. Of course, you try to plan as much as possible. Still, you need to be able to adapt to changes because things will change if you like them or not. I'm not even talking about global pandemics. I'm talking about shortage of supply, change of the supply chain, employee turnover, anything that might happen that impacts your project. However, there are quite a number of challenges and problems we have in the first place. Often when people make mistakes and they see that they now have to adjust the project to deal with these mistakes, people don't like to talk about it. Of course, some, say, well, we have a culture of failure, or we have a failure culture or error culture, however you want to call it. You want to communicate that you're open for mistakes and then tell people that we learn from these mistakes and there's no problem with making mistakes. The problem is no one is believing you. No one believes you when you say that. Often, especially when you have no particular proof of this culture of errors, error culture, failure culture, however you want to name it, people often had experiences before and they said, well, I worked for an organization. They said they were very open for any kind of failure. And it's all about what we learned, how to become better in the future. And as soon as an error happened, the only thing that happened was someone said, or someone asked, who was it? And that person had sanctions and punishment against them. And that immediately makes your so-called error culture nothing else than a pseudo plan inside your organization. And people very quickly realize when you claim that something happens while it's not really happening, people immediately know when this happens. So how to do better? And that's the question we have to deal with today. How to do better? So step number one is when someone makes an error or a mistake, or simply they had a wrong planning, maybe they had a wrong assumption, or maybe even they looked at a database or purchased data, but the situation changed so quickly due to a global pandemic, for example, that they now say, well, our approach simply is not valid anymore. We now have to see that adapting to these changes is crucial for your success. And by the way, often when people say, well, this whole culture of mistakes or error culture, is that really something we need to have because we want to work without errors? Well, we all love to, but we know that errors or mistakes or someone doing something wrong simply will happen. And I want to be unambiguously clear. Any kind of leader who says they will not accept any kind of error culture, these leaders are not sustainable and they are not fit for use, fit for purpose. They are not suitable for the future we have in your or in any organization. What we really need is a proper lessons learned when something goes wrong. And we all know how lessons learned normally go. People say, oh, yeah, lessons learned, totally important. We need that. Oh, by the way, we don't have any time for that, but next time we might do it. So could you just please write down 2 or 3 aspects so we can look at it if we need it in the future? And then you open a Microsoft Word file, put down 5 to 10 bullet points, save it somewhere. No one's ever looking at it again. And that is not how it works. As soon as you want to have proper lessons learned, take time, maybe a day or even 2 after a project, where sometimes even with an external host or someone who adds knowledge and expertise to the situation and to the session you're running there, these people will help you together with your team to properly have a structured and documented approach to lessons learned. Because if you don't have that, there is no lessons learned. Don't pretend that you did lessons learned just by telling people there is lessons learned. Mentioning the word doesn't mean that you actually committed to it and that you actually fulfilled the task. You need to fully qualify your teams to do it. And now we're talking about fully qualifying teams. What I often see, and that is the next level of problems, I often see that the leaders get qualified, but the leaders only get qualified on a very factual level. So you get factual training, all about facts, which facts and science, of course, is the way you should choose. However, it is more than just the facts. It is more than just qualifying you on a, for example, technical level as an engineer. And now some people might ask, well, what else is there? Let's say when you, for example, want to learn project management. Of course, you can learn project management, and that means you learn all the techniques of, as I said, project management. And you can say, well, that's it, isn't it? What else do we need? And now here is where the challenge starts. as soon as you're qualified in project management, it also means you must lead people. Even if you're not a formal leader, it's called lateral leadership. So leading people even when you are not a formal leader, which is even more challenging, by the way. So you have to be qualified on the soft skill level. And that is the second aspect. So not only the factual level when it comes to expertise, but also on the soft skill level, which is also, of course, based on facts and science. Please stay away from any kind of motivational, inspirational woo-woo and chumbawamba. And of course, you must be qualified when it comes to personal and personality development, not only for yourself, but also for your people. There are still people around who say personality development belongs to your private life, and that's none of the organization's business. Well, you can do it like that. It also means that you have no say in personality development. And it also means that some people might realize after they had to take their private time off and spend their private money on doing so, it might mean that they say, well, I think my personality develops in a way that it says my employer isn't really interested in me. I think I'm going to work somewhere else in the future. And then from there, it is simply your problem. And of course, you don't want to have that situation. So qualify your teams fully and completely, not only on the expertise level when it comes to engineering or any kind of factual training. Always train them on the soft skill level and, of course, on the level of personality development. If anyone still claims today that personality development, and I don't mean motivational, inspirational, chumbawamba, believe in you, blah, blah, not that. I mean factual, really science-based training that is important, especially when you talk about psychology and developing your personality. It is very important that you take this aspect into account, because as soon as you have no say, and leaders who say, oh, this is not the job of the organization, well, as long as people take that personality to work, and I think they do, it is your job. Because what you aim for is proper commitment. You want to have commitment of your people. The problem is when you don't commit to do anything for them, it's called reciprocity. Why should they commit to do anything for you? And of course, we don't want to go down the road of it's a tit for tat situation. You do this, you do that, and I do this, I do that, because that will be an endless chain of who does what in return for what else. And that, of course, is not a nice situation. However, when you don't commit at all and you don't deliver anything, people will say, this is not the place where I want to work. So full commitment relies on full qualification, including full lessons learned and leaders who accept that errors will be made. And it's all about learning from them instead of putting in sanctions for people who did something wrong in the first place. Of course, I have a lot more on that. Just go to expert.nb-networks.com. Every Wednesday morning, there's a lot of articles being published, podcasts, and more. Everything that's published by me is available for free via that expert.nb-networks.com, the leadership letter, which you get every Wednesday morning, once per week, every Wednesday morning. It's 100% content ad-free guarantee. And of course, when you now think, well, I have a very specific question, can I actually chat with you? Yes, you can. nb@nb-networks.com. Just drop me an email and we have a chat from there. If you now say, well, I have a very specific demand, maybe I need someone for training, coaching, consulting, or we have a mentoring project, or we need project interim manager or someone who can host our event, run our event, be the compare, the MC there. Can you do that? Yeah, we can do that, but we can also just have a chat. Just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and we take it from there. The most important aspect right now is to apply what you heard here and what you want to see in your organization, because ongoing education and training is not just something which I talk about in my podcast. I'm recording this at 2 a.m. in the morning right now, because in just a couple of hours, I'm going to be at Heathrow Airport flying to New York City from London. I'm going to be there for New York City Pride for 2 weeks. It's all about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We talked about that last week, but it's also about leadership, running organizations sustainably, and getting ongoing education. And expert education often is located with expert universities. And let's face it, many of them are based in the US. And that's why I'm flying over there to get the best content for you. So the next 2 weeks, you will hear from me from New York City, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Then I now wish you all the best for this week. And for this week, there's also only one thing for me left to say. Talk to you soon from New York City. And for this week, there's only one last thing for me to say. You know what's coming now, and it is thank you very much for your time.